At the inheritance distribution held in our childhood home just outside Charleston, my older brother Marcus stood up like he owned the walls, raised his glass, and announced with a confident laugh that Mom and Dad had decided to leave the entire family real estate portfolio to him alone, then turned toward me with a smug grin and said, "Sorry, Noah, guess some people are just meant to manage success." And the room erupted into applause so loud it felt like the floor vibrated beneath my feet. Cousins cheering, uncles nodding proudly, his girlfriend wrapping her arms around him like she'd just won the lottery, while my mother wiped a tear of pride from her cheek and my father leaned back smiling like the decision had already become legend. But I didn't clap. I didn't blink. I just looked directly at my father and said calmly, "Dad, don't you know?" And the entire house fell so silent you could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen as Marcus's smile froze halfway across his face, and every person in that room felt something was about to shatter. Before I tell you what my father forgot and how that afternoon rewrote our family forever, let me take you back to how everything quietly changed years before anyone realized it. My name is Noah Parter, and growing up, Marcus was always the son everyone revolved around. First steps, first awards, first car, first business loan from Dad, while I was the quiet one who studied, worked, and stayed invisible. The kid who fixed broken bikes instead of playing football, the teachers praised but relatives barely noticed. And when Marcus dropped out of college to start a business, my parents celebrated his courage while telling me to be realistic when I got into an engineering program on scholarship. And from that moment, I understood something important in our family. Effort was ignored, confidence was rewarded. I moved away after graduation, building a career in commercial property analytics in Raleigh, learning how deeds, trusts, shell transfers, and asset protection actually worked, while Marcus stayed home helping Dad manage our family's rental homes, 12 properties scattered across coastal South Carolina, and every holiday visit I heard how amazing Marcus was doing, how much rent he was collecting, how responsible he'd become, while no one ever asked what I was working on. The only person who did was my grandfather, Henry. Grandpa built those properties from nothing after returning from the Navy, slowly buying run-down homes and restoring them himself, teaching me how ownership wasn't about showing off, but about protecting families who depended on stable housing. And as his health declined, he started asking me quiet questions about legal structures, about preventing money from being misused, about what happened when one person in a family controlled everything. And I answered honestly, never realizing he was preparing for something bigger. One afternoon, 3 years before his death, Grandpa called me over and laid out bank records that made my stomach drop. Hundreds of thousands missing, repair expenses that never happened, management fees that kept growing, all tied back to Marcus's control accounts. And Grandpa said softly, "Your brother doesn't realize numbers leave footprints." And that was the day he told me he was transferring everything into a living trust, naming me sole successor trustee, with deeds recorded quietly so ownership would already be settled long before anyone tried to rewrite history. He made me promise not to tell anyone, not Marcus, not Mom and Dad, no one. People reveal who they are when money thinks it belongs to them, he said. For years, nothing changed on the surface. Marcus kept bragging, parents kept praising, I kept silent. Until Grandpa passed. That's when the vultures gathered. Within weeks, my parents started talking about legacy planning, Marcus acting like the properties were already his, relatives hinting about how fair it was that the responsible son should inherit everything, and then came the invitation to the official inheritance distribution, the moment they thought would crown Marcus king. Which brings us back to that living room. The applause still echoing, my father staring at me in confusion, Marcus's face tightening. I reached into my bag, calmly pulled out a folder, and placed it on the table. Inside were 12 recorded deeds bearing Grandpa's signature, the living trust documentation, county stamps, legal transfers completed years ago. I slid them forward and said quietly, "Grandpa already transferred ownership 3 years ago.
Every property is legally mine. You could physically feel the air leave the room. My mother's smile collapsed. My father's face went pale. Marcus lunged forward, shouting that it was fake, that Grandpa was sick, that I manipulated him, until our family lawyer flipped through the pages slowly, then looked up and said, "These are recorded assets. This inheritance meeting is ceremonial. The estate was settled long ago." Silence. Then chaos. My parents yelling, relatives whispering, Marcus pacing like a trapped animal. I looked him in the eyes and said, "While you were stealing repair money and bragging about profits, Grandpa was protecting what he built." That's when the second folder came out, the financial audit Grandpa and I had quietly compiled, showing the missing funds Marcus had drained over the years. And the lawyer's face hardened as he said fraud investigations would begin immediately. Marcus's girlfriend stepped away from him. My mother started crying. My father sank into a chair like his bones disappeared. And in that moment, everything flipped. Within months, Marcus faced charges for embezzlement. The stolen money was recovered. My parents sold their luxury cars to cover legal fallout. Family gatherings stopped, and I became the quiet owner Grandpa always trusted me to be. But I didn't raise rents. I fixed the houses. I protected tenants. I expanded the portfolio responsibly. And the peace I felt was worth more than every apology I never accepted. Because I learned something powerful. Sometimes the people who cheer loudest for your loss are the same ones who panic when truth finally speaks. Family doesn't mean entitlement, and real wealth isn't money, it's freedom. So if you were sitting at a table where everyone celebrated taking from you, would you stay silent or would you do exactly what I did?